Did you know that the oldest fossils of Homo sapiens weren't found in Europe or Asia, but in Africa? For centuries, a harmful myth has persisted that Africa has no history, no civilization, no contributions to the world. This is not only false, it's a deliberate erasure of a vibrant and essential part of human history. Today, we're diving deep to debunk this myth, revealing the truth about Africa's central role in shaping our world. Let's start at the very beginning, the dawn of humanity. The story of us, Homo sapiens, begins in Africa. The oldest widely accepted fossils of our species have been unearthed on African soil. Consider Jebel Irhoud in Morocco, where fossils date back approximately 315,000 years. Then there's Homo kaibish in Ethiopia, with fossils around 233,000 years old, and Hato, also in Ethiopia, yielding fossils about 160,000 years old. Genetic research overwhelmingly supports the African origin of modern humans, tracing our ancestry back to the continent and charting the subsequent migrations that populated the rest of the globe. So, Africa isn't just a continent, it's the birthplace of humanity itself. But the story doesn't end there. Africa wasn't just the starting point, it was also home to some of the earliest and most impressive civilizations the world has ever seen. Ancient Egypt, flourishing around 3100 BC with the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt under Nama, stands as a testament to African ingenuity and statecraft. But Egypt wasn't alone. To the south, Nubia, also known as Kush, developed its own powerful states. The Khmer Kingdom, emerging around 2500 BC, rivaled Egypt in wealth and power. Later, the Kingdom of Kush, with its capitals at Napata and Meroe, even ruled Egypt as the 25th dynasty from 747 to 656 BC. These Kushite rulers left their mark on Egyptian culture and architecture, demonstrating the interconnectedness of ancient African civilizations. Further east, the Aksumite Empire, in present-day Ethiopia and Eritrea, rose to prominence by about 100 C. Aksum was a major trading power, issuing its own coinage in the 3rd century CE and adopting Christianity under King Ezana in the 4th century, becoming one of the earliest Christian states in the world. Aksum's influence extended across the Red Sea, connecting Africa with Arabia and the wider world. Moving westward, the empires of West Africa, such as Mali and Songhai, flourished from the 13th to the 16th centuries. Under Manso Musa, who ruled from about 1312 to 1337, Mali became renowned for its immense wealth, particularly its gold reserves, and its dedication to Islamic scholarship. The Songhai Empire, under leaders like Sunni Ali and Askia Muhammad, dominated West Africa in the 15th and 16th centuries, controlling vital trade routes and promoting intellectual life. These empires weren't just powerful, they were centers of learning and culture. Timbuktu, in particular, became a major intellectual hub in the 15th and 16th centuries, attracting scholars from across the Sahara and beyond. The Sanko learning tradition in Timbuktu fostered a vibrant manuscript culture, preserving works on law, astronomy, medicine, theology, and mathematics. These manuscripts, many of which still exist today, provide invaluable insights into the intellectual achievements of West African scholars. But advanced civilization wasn't confined to the north and west. In southern Africa, Great Zimbabwe flourished from the 11th to the 15th century CE. This magnificent city, built entirely of stone without mortar, served as the political center of a powerful Shona kingdom. At its peak, Great Zimbabwe controlled trade in gold, ivory, and cattle, demonstrating the economic and political sophistication of its rulers. These are just a few examples of the many advanced civilizations that thrived in Africa long before European colonialism. But what about the idea that Africa was isolated from the rest of the world? This, too, is a myth. Africa was deeply integrated into global trade networks, participating in the Trans-Saharan trade, the Indian Ocean trade, and the Red Sea trade. Gold, salt, ivory, enslaved people, textiles, beads, spices, and ceramics flowed across these routes, connecting African ports and states with Arabia, India, Persia, China, and Europe. These trade networks facilitated not only the exchange of goods but also the exchange of ideas and cultural influences. The idea that Africa had no writing or intellectual traditions is also demonstrably false. Ancient African writing systems, such as Egyptian hieroglyphs, Meroitic script in Nubia, Guizi in Ethiopia, and Tifinagh among Amazigh peoples, demonstrate the continent's rich literary heritage. Moreover, much of African history was preserved through oral literature, griots, genealogies, praise poetry, and court histories. These oral traditions, passed down through generations, provide valuable insights into African societies, cultures, and political systems. And what about technology? Was Africa technologically backward? Absolutely not. Ironworking occurred in multiple African regions by the 1st millennium BCE or early 1st millennium CE, depending on the region. While scholars debate the origins of iron smelting in sub-Saharan Africa, the evidence clearly shows that Africans possessed sophisticated metallurgical skills. From tools and weapons to agricultural implements and artistic creations, ironworking played a crucial role in African societies. The transatlantic slave trade, lasting from the 16th to the 19th centuries, had a devastating impact on Africa. Historians estimate that about 12.5 million Africans were forcibly transported across the Atlantic, with about 10.7 million surviving the horrific journey. The slave trade depopulated many regions, militarized politics, and reshaped economies, leaving a lasting scar on the continent. It also fueled the development of racial ideologies that were used to justify enslavement and colonial rule. The Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885 formalized the European partition of Africa, leading to a period of intense colonial exploitation. Colonialism redrew borders, extracted labor and resources, and disrupted African political systems, leaving a legacy of inequality and instability that persists to this day. European empires often portrayed Africa as, without history, to legitimize their conquest, making African achievements invisible in school curricula, museums, and popular culture. This wasn't just political domination, it was epistemic domination, control over what counts as history. It's crucial to remember that Africa is not a single culture or identity. The statement, "Africans are all black," is simply untrue. Africa is a continent of immense diversity, home to Arabs, Amazigh, Nubians, Somalis, Ethiopians, Eritreans, Khoisan, Malagasy, and countless other peoples. Africa has thousands of languages, estimates often exceed 2,000 each, with its own unique history and cultural significance. African kingdoms use diplomacy, taxation, and statecraft to govern their territories and manage their affairs. The Asante Empire in present-day Ghana developed a sophisticated bureaucracy and military system in the 17th to 19th centuries. The Oyo Empire in present-day Nigeria had a powerful cavalry-based state and advanced political institutions. The Benin Kingdom, famous for its bronze art tradition, had a highly developed court system. African art, such as the Benin bronzes and the Ife heads, was historically elite, technically complex, and globally influential. European visitors were often astonished by the sophistication of African courts and urban life, challenging their preconceived notions about the continent. African women also held significant political power throughout history. Amenarines, a Kandake of Kush, resisted Roman expansion around 24 to 22 BC. Queen Zinga of Nongo and Matamba ruled in the 17th century, skillfully negotiating with Portuguese and Dutch powers. Ya Asantewa led resistance against the British in the War of the Golden Stool in 1900. These are just a few examples of the many powerful women who shaped African history. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tuahedo Church has preserved a long and independent Christian tradition since the 4th century CE, developing a distinct written tradition in Guizi. Muslim scholars traveled between Mali, Egypt, Mecca, Fez, and Timbuktu, fostering intellectual exchange and preserving knowledge. African scholarly networks were tied to the wider Islamic world, especially from the 8th century onward. Many early European descriptions of Africa were shaped by slave trade ideology, colonial propaganda, and racial pseudoscience, creating durable myths that Africa had no history before Europeans arrived. If humans evolved in Africa, then Africa is not a side note, it is the starting point of the global human story. This reframes world history. Africa is foundational, not derivative. Ancient Egypt influenced Mediterranean and Near Eastern civilizations. Nubia Kush interacted with Egypt, the Levant, and the Roman world. Aksum was a major Indian Ocean power connecting Africa and Arabia. West African empires fueled trans-Saharan commerce and Islamic scholarship, contributing to global systems of trade and knowledge. Today, modern African states often reclaim pre-colonial history as a source of legitimacy and pride, highlighting pre-colonial kingdoms and indigenous scholarship in national symbols, museums, and curricula. There are contemporary efforts to preserve and revive indigenous languages, oral traditions, manuscript collections, and traditional governance systems, celebrating Africa's rich cultural heritage. African countries are demanding the return of looted artifacts, especially Benin bronzes, manuscripts, regalia, and sacred objects, seeking to reclaim their cultural patrimony. Pan-Africanism promotes solidarity and cooperation among African peoples, advocating for a united and prosperous Africa. Africa's story is not one of absence, but of presence, innovation, and resilience. It's time to rewrite the narrative and recognize Africa's central role in shaping the world we live in today.